Welcome to a video about Table 500, memes, dreams, and time machines. That almost rhymed. So, today, we're talking about a very special deck. It is Blaster Gyze. Yup. So, we'll start with the Gyze half of the deck, because that's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, just playing Gyze as the starter. Gyze lets you have Zeroth Dragons in your deck regardless of what nation they normally belong to. So this deck does take advantage of that by playing a bunch of extra Zeroth Dragons. But you only have to have it in your deck for that. Like, Gyze just has to be anywhere in the deck, and you get to play whatever Zeroth Dragons you want. So you can keep that in mind. I think there's like some Narukami builds that play Zoa, but you do need to stride from a Cray Elemental, because you can't stride like a Narukami grade 3 on top, or you can't stride the Zoa on top of a Narukami grade 3 because they're not the same nation. You can play it, and Gyze lets you do that, but as the starter, what he was originally intended for is he also lets you bind your Zeroth Dragons whenever you check a trigger, instead of getting the power increase from your triggers. So you still get the effect that's like, draw a card, gain an extra crit, heal a damage, like all of that. Front triggers are the only ones that do literally nothing under Gyze, so if you're playing Gyze as your starter, don't play fronts. Big brain play right there. And the point of Gyze is if you get 5 Zeroth Dragons bound, you can ultimate stride into Dragon Deity of Destruction Gyze, which just is a massive 30k body. It stays your Vanguard for the entire rest of the game. It makes all your rear guards into Zeroth Dragons that are unaffected by card effects and can't be attacked. And also just, you know, as a cute little bonus, you deal 5 damage to your opponent at the beginning of their turn, or of your turn. So, you know, that's just a nice little thing on top, really not super relevant. I'm kidding. Gyze decks are entirely built around that. You just get into Gyze and immediately win the game. It's stupid, it's auto-win, it's crazy, it's great, but you have to hit 5 triggers and ultimate stride before your opponent kills you. And if you know Premium right now, that's hard. That's a little hard. So to facilitate that, you usually need to be playing some kind of other defension, and also, we may as well just play old draw triggers, because we're not going to get the bonus power anyway from new draw triggers, so like, whatever, we'll just take the skill. Even if it's, like, this skill, put this unit into your soul, one of your units gets 3,000 power until end of turn. It's not a very good skill, but it's a skill. It's something. It's better than nothing. Better than just playing a vanilla trigger. The one problem we have with draw triggers, though, is the shield. The shield's a problem. It's very much a problem. Again, Gyze really wants to play defensively and try to keep yourself alive, because you need to hit 5 triggers and get to an ultimate stride, which can take some time. Having 5k shields doesn't help that, but we're doing it anyway. Why? Because we are. We do have the heals with the 20k shields, just because extra shield is nice, and very rarely do we get into games where G-guarding is that big a deal, so may as well just take the extra shield. And we do have draw PGs, luckily. That's one thing we do get with Gyze still, is we can still play these draw PGs at full effectiveness, which is great. For the main engine of the deck, though, those are just the triggers. What we're really here for is this boy. Messianic Lord Blaster. Here's the other half of the deck. So, basically, what this deck aims to do is it aims to take Gyze, a deck with a pretty slow and inconsistent win condition that can just completely blow your opponent out of the water in one turn, and combine it with a pretty slow and inconsistent win condition that can just completely blow your opponent out of the water in one turn. Yeah! So, the amount of synergy the two have, very little. They kind of compete for space. at the same time, because on the one hand, you want to set up your Messianic Lord Blaster so you can get 7 or 8 crit Vanguard swing and just punch your opponent once and they die. But on the other hand, you also want to like play defensive and build up triggers and not call a board, so you can survive long enough to get your Gyze online. So you'll see how they work together. We'll take a look at a match in just a second, but you'll see how quote unquote well these two decks work together. All right. And for the rest of the slots we have here, just a bunch of different blasters. Basically just looking for blaster names, because Messianic Lord Blaster, you need 6 units with different names that all have blaster in their name to activate his skill at all. And when you do, he gets the combined power and critical of all of your rear guards, which is how you get up to 6, 7, 8 crit. But there's a lot of not very good blasters, and unfortunately we have to play a lot of them. For example, my personal favorite blaster in the deck, Blaster Blade Seeker. You can't use its skill. It's a 9k body, so it's smaller than a V-era card, and it does nothing. It's not even a vanilla, so you can't even use the vanilla engine with it. You literally can't use its skill, because you will never have a Seeker Vanguard when you place it on the rear guard, because Blaster Blade Seeker is the only Seeker in the deck. Then there's also Blaster Blade Spirit. 4 copies of Blaster Rapier, that's such a good card. Now let's just throw in more copies of Spirit. Perfect. Best deck. Yeah, so a lot of these blasters, they really don't have useful skills at all. Of course, the ones that do have useful skills, like Blaster Rapier, are being maxed out on. The other one that's really good is Blaster Dagger. Both of these decks were designed specifically to work with Messianic Lord Blaster. So, I mean, their whole purpose is to have a blaster on the board. So it works perfect. Here's a Corgi Butt. It has nothing to do with the deck, but I saw it and it's adorable and I love him. Blaster Javelin does not a whole lot. It's fine. There's Blaster Friend Barkle, countercharging, I guess. When your card named Blaster Blade is placed van or rear in the same column, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster, countercharge. There's only one Blaster Blade in this deck. Anyways. And then Swordsman of Light, Blaster Rapier, Lola. She's decent. She has resist. Also, in case you hadn't noticed, we're only playing 6 10k shields. Remember how I said we wanted more defense? Apparently the person who made this deck disagrees with me. So, that's fun. Oh, and also, just to round it out, 2 copies of Blaster Dark. Just because, good card, blaster name. You're allowed to use it in Royal Paladin decks now because of the trial deck. And then the rest of our cards from these different nations here are different Zeroth Dragons. It doesn't matter which ones you play, just pick any 5. It looks like we have Dust, Dark, Megiddo, Zoa, and Ultima. So aside from that, in the G-Zone, it's pretty straightforward. We don't have a ton of room because we are losing 5 whole slots to blasters. So the first thing we need is G-Guards. They're not hugely important because a lot of games you'll either kill your opponent with Messianic very quickly or, you know, you'll just die. But they're still here, they still come up, they're G-Guardians, they're really good. I'm pretty sure this is like the best Royal Paladin G-Guard if you're playing an Alfred or Blaster deck, so yeah, it's good, it's fine, it works, max out on it, may as well. Then there is the Gancelot Peace Saver. This is just okay. There's really nothing better. That's why this is here. There's just nothing better. And then Crystal Luster is the main real stride. The only one you really consistently go into, because you get to copy your Messianic skill and name. So you can still go for the huge one punch. And if you can get its second skill off, you can even go for the one punch even more consistently and better, because you get guard restrict with it. But that's the deck. Now let's take a look real quick at a replay we have of this deck in action. So this is from one of our Vision tournaments, in fact, and I believe both of the players here are Vision members. We have BB Exceed versus, I think it's Core. I don't Don't quote me on that. But we have, as you saw there, on this end up here, we have the Gyze, and on this end down here, we have the Nubatama. So we shall see what they do. Players are drawing starting hands, getting ready. So we have, what do we have? We have 3 different blaster names. We're going for a mulligan of 2, including the Messianic Lord Blaster, which is really, really nice to see. Oh, actually goes to mulligan 3. So now we have 4 blaster names, including the Messianic, and we have this heal, which is actually not bad to see in hand. Normally you'd want to be able to check heals, and of course in this you do want to check heals, but also we have such low shield value in the deck, it can be nice to see this, just so your opponent doesn't just kill you. And then Blaster Dark. Blaster Dark is great because it's a really, really strong grade 2 ride. If your opponent has no rear guards, you can discard a card, and he gets an additional drive. That's really useful for Gyze decks in particular, because you have an additional chance to check a drive trigger, which gets you closer to your Gyze win condition. At the same time, though, the way you kind of want to play this deck is to just not really swing at your opponent, or at the very least swing under, which is why these things like Lola are so nice, having these lower numbers, so you don't have to give your opponent damage, so none of their counterblast things have to go off. And one thing we're seeing here, BB Exceed does not have to call a single rear guard, can just leave the Lola on as the Vanguard and swing raw like that. It doesn't matter if you get a trigger, you don't get the power increase anyway, so you're still swinging under even if you hit the trigger. It's crazy because not getting the power is supposed to be the detriment and the problem, and the why you might necessarily not want to play Gyze all the time. But in this deck, it's actually working out in some ways as an advantage, which is pretty nice to see. So another thing that we're seeing from core here, though, is something you'll definitely want to keep in mind if you're ever playing against this deck, which, I mean, clearly this is the most powerful meta deck of all time, so as soon as people know about it, it's going to be everywhere. Core is calling down rear guards that can either be bounced or removed from the field in some way at the end of the battle. This is really great, just because you can avoid letting your opponent swing at your rears, so they have to swing under, which means they have to have a lower powered Vanguard. Because normally, when you want to damage deny your opponent, you can just swing at rears, still get your drive checks, and still get all your resources. But if your opponent doesn't give you any rears to swing at, you either have to give them the damage, or you have to just pass, which feels very not good, especially when you have Blaster Dark, which could be getting you 2 whole drive checks, getting you 2 checks closer to your Gyze. But yeah, as we're seeing here, BB Exceed just passing on Blaster Dark. It's really unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's not the end of the game. We still have plenty of opportunities in hand. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different blaster names, which is fantastic. We just need 1 more blaster name, and Messianic skill is online. An important thing to note, there's no PGs here. Normally the answer to Messianic is PG or die, because he gets so big. The power of all your rear guards combined into one swing, it's absolutely brutal massive, and can easily get up to 8,000 power or even more. And while you don't have to worry about your opponent's drive checks increasing their Vanguard power anymore, because again, Gyze, we don't get power, it's still such a big attack. It's hard to guard. And calling down this crit here is gonna mean there's even less shield in hand. So if we do get to see Messianic here, we may get to see an absolute pop-off. BB Exceed basically just taking all the damage, not really caring, because If he can get the clap back on the very next turn, it's over. Doesn't matter how much you win by in Vanguard. If you win, you win. Seeing our one of Majesty Lord Blaster. Oh, and we got another draw trigger check on the defensive. That's the second one we've had this game. So we have 2 Zeroth Dragons here in the... Well, it's removed from game, just to make it easier, but this is technically the bind zone, meaning we're only 3 Zeroth Dragons away from having Gyze online. And we're kind of seeing this... This game does a really good job of showing off exactly why Gyze isn't really played. This is really slow. We're on turn 3. We've gotten really lucky and taken a lot of damage on purpose just to try to get trigger checks, and we still only have 2 face-up Zeroth Dragons. But none of that matters, because this is why we play Messianic Lord Blaster. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different Blaster names all slapped down on the rear guard circles. Does not matter if they don't have boost, because this is the only column that matters. Never even swinging with the side columns, because why would you? You're just going to give your opponent damage and the chance to check triggers. Let's not even worry about it. Oh, also, you know, all your Blaster rears get boost anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. But just to note, it doesn't really matter. Here we go. Vanguard getting big. Pump it up. Pump that chunk. Look at it go. Look at how big it gets. Oh my god. It is 70,000 power. 7 critical. What the... what the heck? Like, we have all the memes about Gastille and how big Gastille gets. In terms of crit, this is like 3 crit higher than Gastille, and it's approaching similar levels of power. Absolute insanity. And Core can't make it, has to take the no guard. So this is heal or die. You double heal or die here. Just already. Your opponent swung and is hitting you for the very first time in the game. And you're already in a situation where you either heal twice or you die. So, you know, just sack. Just sack. Just get double heals. Oh, and also they have to be on the 6th damage check both times. Like, this heal does nothing because you gave your opponent 5 damage. And they just took it because they knew they could deny heals. And there you go. That's the game. That's Blaster Gyze. I do want to count something real quick. So we're at 70k versus this was at 9. So this would have brought it up to 39, 44, 54, 59, 64, and then if he didn't call down this, it would have brought it up to, oh my god, that would have been 79. So you could actually keep one of these in hand, because remember, you don't have to worry about your opponent's triggers. So Core actually had this game, but Blaster Gyze, too strong, dude. Too strong. Such a good deck, such insanity, such fun, meme potential. So, what do we think about Blaster Gyze? Well, I'd like to hear what everyone says in the comments, so let me know how crazy you think this deck is, if you think it's any good. I would say that in terms of memes, this is one of the best decks I've ever seen. Like, this deck is crazy. You've got 2 alternate win conditions that are both insane and absurd, and they're both so fun to pull off. If you can pull off either, you win. Absolutely crazy. Meme potential through the roof. However, I will admit, in terms of a competitive deck, maybe not the most consistent. Maybe banking on a win condition that either requires you to pull 5 triggers before your opponent kills you in premium, or requires you to draw into 6 different blasters, including the Messianic Lord Blaster, and for your opponent to not have a response to it, including, you know, this deck's biggest weakness, a PG. Your opponent has one of those, and you just do nothing. So you heard it here first, folks. In Premium, play PGs, or you'll get blown out by Messianic Lord Blaster. This is the best deck in the format, and we'll be seeing it everywhere. Have a good night, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.